Okay, my friends. Where should we begin?
Does Camille have a list?
I actually have a list.
We
That's
always do my list. Let's do your list,
we
Louise.
always do. I have a list based on your list.
Okay.
So I don't know if it gets any more Virgo than that. Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Podcast, where we explore life through the lens of somatics. I'm Luis Mujica, a somatic educator who teaches people how to find safety in themselves. Your turn to learn begins now. There are a couple things. So, okay, first of all, I thought we could have a moment to talk about my interesting weekend of my diverged plans, right? So I was like, I was literally in the airport. I was actually, how you sleep over at a hotel by the airport and there's the shuttle that takes you. So I was on the shuttle and the doors opened for me to get on my gate. And I just felt like calling the airline, because of those of you listening, I was going to Puerto Rico to see family. And Hurricane Fiona, which at the time was just a tropical storm. I just had this feeling, I was like, I need to call the airline. And it was so interesting because I'm always talking about this difference between our capacity and our desire and our intuition and our trauma response. And so I was trying to think, is it my trauma response to not go? Am I scared? Is that why I'm not going? I was really feeling into it. And I was like, no, there's this really specific feeling around a settling around not walking into the airport. So I called the airline, I called the hotels, and they were all saying they would give me a credit because of what's happening. So I wouldn't lose any money, which felt like a win-win. So I thought, well, why not take the credit and just do something different for my birthday, which is great. Because then 24 hours later, my cousin called me and he's like, there's no electricity on the island. Utuado is completely flooded. The bridge has broken, exactly the town I was going to be in. So I would have been stranded in Utuado for weeks, possibly. So it was this amazing shift. And I was thinking, those of you listening, I'm so excited because in 2 days I get to interview Byron Katie. And I was like, there was no way. Marika's dancing right now. There was no way I was going to fuck that up. And so I thought,
There was no way I was going to let you.
What would you have done?
Yeah.
What would you have done? I want to hear what you would have done.
I would have, well, I think we talked about this before. I would have taken over that interview. 100%. Are you kidding? I have my Byron Katie questions.
I'm sure you've had them for years. Marika literally grew up with Byron Katie, right?
Well, not with Byron Katie, but with parents who were aware of Byron Katie. I was introduced early, and I'm really glad that I was.
Yeah. So I was just, I was thinking, I don't want that to happen. I don't want to be stuck in Utuado for 4 to 5 weeks. I'll do the easy thing. And it felt like, and I noticed the shoulds compared to what I actually wanted. I was like, oh, it was so clear. The should was you should go. It's your ancestral journey. Your cousin did all this work to go with you, all these stories. And I was like, I'm just going to stay. So I went to New York City instead for the weekend. And so many beautiful things happened. And the highlight, I'll tell you, Marika already heard it. So I love Patti Smith. I don't know if you know who she is, Camille, but she's like a poet, singer from the East Village. She was part of like that downtown New York 60s beatnik scene. But she's this really fiery, like rock and roll singer. And she's 75 and she just rocks it still. And so I got tickets to see her. And we went and I was in the very back of the theater, like way back against a wall. I felt so disconnected from the stage, but I was just thinking, okay, this is what it is. At least I'm here. And my friend who I was with is like a rule breaker. She's like a wild witch from Romania, literally. And she's like, we're going to walk up there right now and scout out seats and no one sat in. And I was like, really? Are we going to get kicked out? And she's like, don't be such a Virgo. This is on my birthday. On my birthday, mind you. So we walk up, we find a seat. It's seat 117. My birthday's on the 17th. So she said, okay, this is your seat. So I'm sitting there. And I'm always thinking Eamon is not into numerology, but she's always checking out what numbers are. And I thought, 2 + 7, 1 + 1 + 7 is 9. Oh, that's nice. 9's like a special number for me. And I'm 4 seats from the stage. So I'm right in the front. She's singing. I run up and out of nowhere just yell out, "It's my birthday." and she she wishes me a happy birthday on stage. And then she dedicates the next song to me. And the song is titled 9. I was
like, my goodness. That's good.
I was like, I was meant to come to New York City
Yes.
for my birthday. So it was just so beautiful. I had to share that.
Oh,
I
I
love
love that.
But,
Mhm.
and this is a perfect intro to what I wanted to talk about, actually, because you said you wanted to talk about all my insane jobs I've had. And part of that, I want to bring all of us into the fold, is around how doing the wrong thing has benefited us.
Mm.
And so my whole experience this weekend was like, I did the wrong thing. You know, like my ego was saying the right thing is to follow through with this plan with your cousin and see your family and all this stuff. And I did the wrong thing. I had the most amazing weekend. So I want us to kind of drop into that and notice, like, where have we done the, I'm thinking of you leaving your job, Camille.
Yes.
And I'm sure Marika has a laundry list, but I'm just like, where have we done the wrong thing? And it was the best thing that ever happened to us. What comes to mind?
I just did this last week. I
Oh,
was thinking while you were telling that
good.
last week. And just for background, for people who don't know, I'm very immunocompromised. So we've been really super isolated as much as we can through the pandemic. And as people have gone back to normal, we really have not. And I've been really scared too, but also just, at the advice of my doctor, not doing too much, in like indoors or that type of thing. Well, last year for my husband's 40th birthday, I bought him tickets to a concert that I knew he would really want to go to. That was going to be last week, when of course I'm like, we'll be back to normal by then, which, some people are, but we aren't. And the day came for the show, and he, of course, had forgotten about it. And so he's like, do you want to go with me? It was indoors with many people. I mean, thousands of people, and it was a really tough choice. I mean, I wanted to have this experience, but I'm always like, is it worth it getting sick? Is it? And usually it isn't. But we went. I actually talked to Fredo about this. I think it was the most embodied concert I've ever been to, because one, I wasn't disassociating like, oh my God, we're going to die. I was mostly like, if we're here, let's do it. Let's really do it. We took our masks, we didn't. Thankfully, I knew last year that we're in our 40s and I wasn't going to want to be in GA. So I had VIP tickets. We basically had like a little row to ourselves. Like, I took earplugs like a truly old person, and I'm so happy I did, because, I felt more resourced, right? Because during the opener, that was this really like dubsteppy thing, very loud, and I'm not great with loud stuff. So I just threw those in for the opener. And then by the time the show started, I was like, I wasn't completely worn out already. You know what I mean? Which I always am at shows, and I can never figure out why I have no stamina. We weren't partying or anything. So it was, I had energy.
Yeah.
It was sort of interesting watching other people at different levels of inebriation or, on drugs or whatever, just being like, I remember that,
Mm-hmm.
And it just ended up being like a 3-hour dance party, and my husband and I had such a good time reconnecting. And like, we hadn't done that since even pre-pandemic, we hadn't been going to very many shows, and everybody dancing. It was just like the coolest experience. And you don't really see that very much in Seattle, because it's a very like phones up in the air, swaying a little bit crowd. And this was like full out, complete, and dancing everywhere. It was so cool. And I'm so glad that we went. Like, the show was incredible and we had a really good time together. But I had to get over this feeling like I was either breaking the rules, breaking our rules, breaking like, like a doctor told me to, X, and being like, can I trust my own intuition, my own, like, do I feel okay? I had just gotten boosted more recently, so I felt a little bit more resourced in that way. But it just felt really good to do something that, quote unquote, was wrong for us, and really just enjoy 1,000% of it. And thank God I did not get sick.
I love
there was that part, but we were just like, we're here, we're just going to do it. We're just going to enjoy it. I'm not, because I could see in the past how I would have been attuned to like, that person looks sick. Or, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like all the what ifs that could have happened, and And instead it was like, I felt really attuned to music, my husband, the experience, which was really the first time I feel like that's happened in a long time when it comes to music. Cause I'm always going in bracing for like what could go wrong, which everything is always gone wrong if you go to enough concerts. But like, and especially with sort of potentially getting sick on top of it, it really felt like I'm going into the lion's den. But it's like, no, we're okay. We were okay.
This is such a good example of the practices being used for joy.
Right. Yeah. Because exactly. And here, I've thought about you at one point. There were two people behind us who were sitting down, and I saw this woman, when we stood up, roll her eyes, because then we were going to be blocking her view. 90% of the people in the place are standing up. So but I could not get my mind off of this woman who clearly hates me now. You know what I mean? And
it's going to ruin your life.
It's going to ruin my life. I might die from this. Like, yeah, it was so, and in the middle of the song, I could just tell I wanted to like sit down so that they wouldn't be mad at me anymore or whatever it is. Who knows what was really going on? And I'm like, they're resourced. They're good. Like, I think I'm not going to let this be the thing that ruins my entire night. But I can think of a time in the past when I would have. And I would have gotten angry at that person in my mind. I had all these stories,
I love
and
that.
so I thought of you. I'm like, would Luis sit down and not dance so that a woman behind him could see this? It's just like three guys on stage with a computer. You know what I mean? It wasn't, it was like DJs. It wasn't like
nothing to really have to see.
Right. She didn't need to, it was a cool light show. We could all see it. So it was just, I thought about you like, no, I'm not gonna,
We were really twinning with that because when I was at the Patty concert, it was the same experience. I was, fourth from the front row, and all these people behind me were sitting. And I'm not gonna sit down at a show where there's like amazing pumping, body moving music. Like that's to me nuts. So I was sitting down when it felt like it, but then there would be moments where I was just so excited I had to move it through my body, and the people were like, "Oh God, Jesus Christ!" Like I heard all these. And I was thinking like, well, they're as free as I am. Like they're as free to hate me. They're as free to yell at me. They're as free to stand up. Like freedom is messy. And I just thought I'm allowed to be free and let them feel however they want. That's up to them. So I felt that same thing you experienced. That's so cool.
And also in the same way, I'm the same way with dancing. Like no one cares. Now I know I'm old enough. No one cares what you're doing, really. They're just concerned with themselves, right?
That's right.
But like I can think of many concerts where all I wanted was to move and all I wanted was to dance. And I did not, because I was like, those people behind me look like they would judge me, or I don't dance very well, or, I'm too old, or whatever it is. And no, I totally went for it. It was awesome. I'm sure cool. I looked, I'm not a professional dancer, so no, but everybody else was dancing too. So it felt like part of something rather than I have a spotlight on me.
That is so gorgeous, Marika.
No, it was cool. It was really cool. I love that. So, aligned.
Where does that go for you, Camille? Like, where's your experience of doing the wrong thing?
See, work's just not as fun as an example as a concert.
Hey, go for it. Whatever it is for you, love.
But that is like what you were talking about before. Choosing to leave my job, choosing to leave corporate America. I had to think like, is this another form of my flight response? Am I running away from responsibility? Am I running away from a challenge? Is this just another manifestation of my flight response? And I think when you're on this healing journey, it can be difficult at first to know the difference. One, either because I'm not really embodied at the moment, or two, I am thinking about those shoulds. Like, I think I talked about this on some of the other podcasts. For me, a lot of it was like, I should be happy. Like I have the education, I have the job that my parents and my grandparents could only wish that they have. I am being selfish and ungrateful. So all of this is playing in my head. But I just took some time. I remember going to the beach actually for an entire week. I decided to disconnect from work and just be there at the beach and with my family. And over that week, I just came to this realization, like, I don't want to be there. I just don't. And if anything, it's not me running away from corporate America. I had actually been doing the work to build the capacity to walk away from it. And so for me, there is this distinction. I'm starting to realize a distinction in my body between acting on a trauma response and listening to your intuition. Because for me, if I'm responding, if I'm in a trauma response, there's like this activation. There's this jitteriness is sort of the best way I can describe it. It's just sort of like this churning in my body. Whereas when I'm acting on intuition, there's just sort of this settledness, this knowing, like a knowing. And even if it doesn't make sense to other people, it is this knowing in my body, like I'm not running away from something, I'm running to something. And so, yeah, in that case, it's doing the wrong thing, but it's been absolutely right. Like I've been reflecting over this, it's almost been a year, but the last 9 months or so. And it's been an incredible 9 months of working for myself, really working past a lot of the overcouplings I had about what safety meant or what happiness meant and how I'd be able to provide for myself. And it's just really interesting because we're doing this in real time. So I'm just going to be here and present. Like literally 2 hours ago, found out I'm pregnant. And so now.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, Marika, you know that stomach flu I thought I had?
Yes.
Oh
my gosh, your full moon baby.
Yes, my full moon baby.
Oh wow, full moon baby.
Yeah, but what was really interesting was when I found out, I just started thinking about like this time last year, I was still working in corporate America. And part of it was, well, if I get pregnant, I'm going to stay because at least then, I'll get the paternity or maternity leave. And I need that. I can't have babies without that. And so a part of me, like once I found out, a part of me was sort of anticipating my body, like going into, okay, what are we going to do? You don't have leave anymore. And it wasn't that. It was more of this, and things will come, they'll ebb and flow, but right now in a place where we'll figure it out. And I actually feel safety in that. And I guess I'm saying all this to say, like, the body knows and universe and spirit knows, because had I gotten pregnant just 1 year ago today, I would have stayed in that job for the maternity leave. I wouldn't have had this awesome year I had. And I've also wouldn't have built the capacity to have the knowing of, yep, we can bring a child into this world without necessarily having paternity leave. We've already discovered all these other resources that we have. So yeah, like I know it's going to freak a bunch of other people out. They're like, you're going to have a baby. You're not working for a company,
Yeah.
But yeah,
You're gonna break their rules.
Yeah, breaking their rules. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow, so
congratulations, Camille.
Thank you.
What really floors me about that is this number 9 coming back in, that 9 months of walking away, and it's like,
Yes.
what? And now you're pregnant. Like, talk about
9
fertility.
months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so symbolic.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh,
And you
babies.
love being pregnant. You love giving birth. So
I do. I
You
really
really
do. I do. I enjoy being pregnant.
Marika looks confused.
I mean, she can do it, so I don't have to.
There you go. There you go.
I can't, which is great.
Like literally the worst part for me is the nauseated feeling, which is why I was like, oh my God, the stomach flu is killing me. But
Yeah.
but other than that, I do enjoy being pregnant. And I was thinking, with my other 2 pregnancies, I like to think I gave my body the space to really enjoy it. But I know just due to other things, I really wasn't. Like this time, I really will be able to give myself the space to enjoy my pregnancy, to enjoy postpartum. Because while I did have maternity leave, it was only 3 months, which for my body was still like really soon.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking at it like, instead of not having maternity leave, like I now have the option to really plan what my postpartum looks like and what's supportive for my body. And yeah, I'm just really excited about how I'm going to approach it differently.
I just feel it's just so beautiful. You said something like, mine's not as exciting as a rock concert. Right?
Yes.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute. It's like, I loved how Marika said it's the most embodied concert experience I've ever had. I'm hearing that. Like, this might be the most embodied pregnancy you've had. And it doesn't mean your other ones weren't sacred and beautiful. It just means your capacity has been stretched. So now you can actually go deeper into it. And isn't that so cool with this somatic work that all three of us are always doing and facilitating and watching people do? We're just so in it that then these big moments come in our lives and we get to meet them in this way that we never could have before.
Right. Because, especially like I think if I was pregnant now, besides a complete miracle, it would just be like the things I'm conscious of now and the way that I know myself now is so different that the pregnancy and the parenting even can't help but be different,
Exactly.
Just from understanding myself in different ways and understanding triggers and all that stuff. Like, I love that you're going to be able to have this really conscious, experience, which is going to be cool.
Me too. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. I mean, even saying it now, like one change for me in this pregnancy is I'm not doing the whole, don't tell anybody until it's 13 weeks. It'll be awkward if you miscarry. I'm like, I'm at 8 weeks. I should be waiting another 5 weeks to tell people. But for me, having had other ectopic and miscarriages as well, if anything, I want to share. And if I do miscarry, that's part of the story too. Yes. Like there is just a different being and energy in my body where I don't, and again, I know people are going to be like, well, you're only 8 weeks. Why are you telling people? That's their rule. But I feel really good. Like there's nothing in my body right now. It's just like, oh my gosh, Camille, I can't believe you just told Luis and Marika and the thousands of other people who are in the world. And you're not 13 weeks yet. If anything, I'm actually really settled and at peace with that. And even if it miscarries, like talking about, I don't know, it's just it's a different grounding.
That moves me because even it's like, as we're always finding new words to express things, like miscarry has such a negative connotation, like but your body did the wrong thing. Yep. And again, here's this theme, like doing the wrong thing. The thing we call what I'm hearing from you two and what I was feeling is the wrong thing is just the opposite of our story. Right? That's really all it comes down
or
to.
Other people's stories. Yeah.
Or other people's stories that we internalize. So this idea of like, it's wrong to tell people at 8 weeks because you might miscarry. Well, what's so bad about miscarrying? Yeah. And I don't mean like to put down someone's tragedy, but like there's nothing wrong with your body if you miscarry. Like your body knows something that we don't, and that's why it releases. And there's a wisdom in that, right?
Yes.
And I know you and I are like death twins, which we'll get future episodes we'll go deeper into. So you have a good relationship with things that end before you want them to. Like you're already there with that.
Yeah, like and I am now. Like the first time I had an ectopic, it was really traumatizing to my nervous system because of no, you're supposed to get pregnant and the baby comes to fruition. If not, something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with the process.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I actually think it was after my second ectopic. I remember I was watching like some movie or TV show and a teenager had died. And somebody said, I think at the funeral, the service, it's a shame. No parent should ever have to bury their child. And in that moment, I remember thinking, why not? Why not? Because that attachment, that story, at least for me, feels like we set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up for disappointment, or we set ourselves up for suffering when we attach to a particular idea that this thing is supposed to happen. When I was able to release that narrative, or really even like now, like to detach myself from the idea that this birth will come to fruition, if I can just enjoy like this moment now, I'm pregnant, I'm sharing it with you two, and then whatever happens, happens. I feel much better in that.
I mean, I'm loving this. Like I wrote down when Marika was talking, I was saying breaking the rules equals ego death. And I think what is so powerful about ego death is, again, when we think of ego, it's that identity about ourselves, about a situation, about a person. And we cling to it as if it's reality, but it's something that we're projecting onto reality, right? So when I think of, when people say to me like, Luis, I'm so afraid of death, how do I overcome that? Well, you don't overcome it by suddenly not being afraid of death. You overcome it by, oh, there's a traffic jam. I wasn't expecting that. Can I be peaceful here? Like, oh, I was supposed to go to Puerto Rico with my relatives and the island is devastated and I decided not to go. Can I feel how happy it is, how happy I am to be in a place that isn't devastated, that Can I feel the decision to not go? Can I be okay with what emerged from not going? Going to the concert, even though all the doctors and people around you saying that's bad, you could die, it's going to hurt you, and you went. It's like, how okay are we day to day with the story we told about something dying? Can we be with that? That builds capacity for the big body death of, well, without a story, this death is actually quite beautiful.
Yes.
And I've practiced that, so I can say it for sure. For me, I can't say it for everybody, but I've sat with people I loved for my whole life and watched them die painfully and peacefully. And without a story, it's like, oh, their body's going into death labor. There's the breath. It's moving into a different realm. Like, who am I to say if it's right or wrong? And my heart was just able to be with them the whole time. It's what I'm hearing from both of your stories is like your presence of doing the thing that was, again, the death to your ego, what you should have done. The presence made it so much easier to be with whatever that was without the story.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like I heard we need to take Camille to more concerts.
I love that you're going to be an excellent somatic therapist.
More concerts.
That will be one of our HLN team travel meetings.
Yes, I will need my
concert.
resourcing. Yeah, the traffic, the people, the standing, the noise. Yes, this autistic Virgo will
We'll be your resource. We will be your resource.
I see. I've always remember seeing people which was new for me in the last 10 years, but people at shows with the baby strapped to their. Then just like the baby has little headphones on, and I'm like, is that the coolest baby on earth? How does that baby get cooler than me? He's like 9 months, and I'm like,
and at Coachella.
We're at the same show.
That was Eamon with Lyra, and it wasn't like Eamon doesn't. She likes loud shows now, but like she went through a period of being really overwhelmed by them. But I remember I was a touring musician when Lyra was born, so she would come to my shows and went to a couple festivals, and she had these cute pink headphones. She just put them on her and she'd just be dancing with her, and Lyra was just blissed out. To her, it was like being in the womb all over again. So she loved it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So did you do a lot of play to Lyra when she was in utero?
Lots. Eamon would sit next to the piano and I would just play and sing for hours. So she was just so, I think music was just something that she was so bathed in that she responded really well to it.
Does she have interest in being does she like singing or playing anything now?
She loves the harp. My good friend Elizabeth is a brilliant harpist.
Wow.
And she is her harp teacher. And Lyra picked that shit up like that.
I just can't I thought you were going to say like a piano,
I thought it'd be
does she like pets? She has a unicorn. Like, oh, cool.
No, and her name Lyra, it harkens from the lyre, which interestingly enough is one of my distant ancestors. They're the ones that invented the lyre, the North Africans, which is really cool. So I'm 5 generations removed from them, so I don't know any of them personally, but that was their instrument, which I thought was so interesting. So maybe it's coming through her body now.
That's cool.
Her little white frames playing that lyre. I'm enjoying
a little bean pole now.
She's such a bean. She's a mung bean sprout. That's what she is, But another thing that Camille said that I wanted to highlight was urgency. You didn't say it, I heard it. Urgency when it comes to intuition compared to trauma response. Because when I was on that bus, the thing I was really following when I was thinking of not going was this peaceful feeling of not going. The urgency was actually coming from going.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I thought of not going, my whole body just completely, I felt like, and I said to the driver, I said, keep driving. What do you mean? This is your gate. I'm going back to the hotel. And he was he just stared at me. And I said, please keep going. And so it was like, I was practicing my canceling even then, but it was just so good. Right. Like that. The urgency is not what we want to follow, even though it feels like that's the thing to follow. That's not what we want to follow.
It's hard when other people are in urgency and that, but can't. I find that I often try to jump in front of it, like some kind of, I'm going to save you from this,
Yep.
Because I'm like, but you're just spinning. There's nothing good, but there's no real way to actually I just, it's like now I'm like, I try to do the opposite, right? Because I want to fix it. And I'm like, I think you're just supposed to sit here, listen.
Yes, like witness the urgency, don't become it or try to stop it, right?
Right. It just ends up getting very jumbled together, and now we're all urgent about something.
Well, it's funny because the other thing I did for my birthday was I saw Hamilton again.
Again.
And that's the show we need to take Camille to. She could handle that.
Yes, you
Right?
should. Yes.
Sit in the theater, be really comfy, beautiful
Yes.
music, hip hop, like have a great time. So I was like, I was laying there thinking, well, what do I want to do tonight? I want to see live music. And I was looking everywhere, all these bands, and I thought, I said, wait a minute. One of my favorite soundtracks of all time are still playing live. Like, why don't I go there? And it was, to Hamilton. But as I was sitting there, I was thinking of both of you. Obviously, we talk about it so much. I was thinking of the flight response. And I was watching, Lin-Manuel, I think, related to Alexander Hamilton so much because there was like this childhood trauma with like hurricanes and being born on islands and feeling like being immigrants and families of immigrants and having this flight response. And it's even in the song Nonstop.
Mhm.
And I'm just, so I'm watching like, oh, the colonization of America, which really the play is just a beautiful expression of colonization if we really think about it. And there's nuance, there's good people that were part of that, so
Right.
I'm not putting them down, but they're showing us the colonization of America after the Native Americans were subdued and slaughtered and such. So they didn't show that part, but it's interesting to watch it through the lens of trauma and through the lens of the flight. And so when we were saying about urgency, I was thinking, oh, there's just this nonstop urgency that they had to do to kind of conquer these lands. I just wanted to throw that out here and see where you two go.
I mean, I'm just glad other people watch Hamilton through a somatic lens. I'm sitting there and like, why does he write like he's running out of time? Because he's in flight response. Duh, we know the answer. Like,
That's right. That's right.
So I'm just glad other people have that experience with Hamilton as well.
It's amazing, right? It's like you can see all these different responses through the play. It's incredible. What do you think over there, Marika? I see your eyes going up.
I was thinking of I wanted to flee when my brother took me to see Hamilton when we were in the middle of it because the seats were so uncomfortable. And I'm just that type of person, where I was like, just this, my knees are up here. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this is taking away from the experience because I'm not paying attention,
Totally.
I mean, I love Hamilton and I knew every word anyways before it went. But I just remember thinking like these old, beautiful historical places don't have seats that I like.
Well,
and I remember my brother and I standing up and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe, why did we wear heels? And like, it was just I love Hamilton. I loved it, but I would love to see it in a different theater.
It was overcoupled with discomfort now for you.
Right, exactly. But I could just, unfolding was a relief, like actually getting to stand up. But just, that's the same thing with the concert, like attuning to, I was really worried the whole time that I was taking up too much room. And like the people next to me, you know what I mean? I was just attuned to the wrong things, and I like that. I think attunement was also part of it for me going to the concert because I can always, especially in the last 3 years, attune to what's going to go wrong, and what has gone wrong for people I actually know, and instead I was just like, okay, I know all these people who travel all over the world and they didn't get sick.
Yes.
All these people who, recently, I was trying to think of people recently. Remember, so-and-so just got back and they're okay. So-and-so just went to that concert and they were okay. Like, I also knew it was a risk, but I also knew we were really willing to take it. So, but that was one thing that I had an issue with but realized through the pandemic was when everyone says to you, we're being really careful. But that is a huge and very long, endless, like, barometer.
Personal expression. What does that mean? Yeah.
I'm being really careful. Somebody told me, like, in the first few months when we were all in lockdown and they, were in Europe or something. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't do that. But then also I just went to this concert and I know people in my life, they wouldn't do that. So
you're really careful.
And I think we're being really careful usually,
right.
Totally.
Totally.
It was just very much, and also I didn't post anything about it on my Instagram because in my mind, I was like, I don't want to have to then do a post about like, so we were really, I was like, how do I navigate that?
Prove your cautiousness to the crowd,
right,
to the
and I'm like,
audience.
how do I navigate that? And then I'm like, no, I don't have to. I can do what I
don't
want.
have to. I can do it. It's your body, it's your
Yeah.
health. Whatever you want to do with it is up to you.
Yeah, just start noticing.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, on this kind of like ego death topic of doing the wrong thing, when I was walking to Hamilton, I walked through Times Square, and I heard somebody in the background going, "Comedy tickets, get your comedy tickets," and I had a flashback, and I forgot I used to sell comedy tickets.
What?
And I was thinking about how like the ego death with our like even our careers and jobs. And I think every time I did a different job, it was so insanely different from the other one. It was almost like if an alien came to Earth and they said, I want to like feel the human experience. I want to be a spy. I always feel like a spy at my jobs. I didn't feel like I was actually the job. I thought, ooh, I'm like learning this new human facet. And I guess I was curious if either of you had that experience, or that's something that just I went through. Not I went in a whole world, but out of us three.
I will say, I think I had the reverse experience. I am in a place now where I don't feel defined by how I make money. But again, it's just sort of the part of the way raised and what's reflected. Oh, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm a lawyer. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm a doctor. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm an executive in a business. So for me, it was when I got out of college, you get a successful job because then that's your badge of honor. This is how, when people ask you, hey, what's your name? What do you do? It's the first two questions people ask you. And so I have to have a response, and not just for myself, my parents have to have a response when people ask them what I'm doing. So it really, for me, part of what allowed me to begin to have the capacity to leave corporate America was challenging that idea of, well, can I do more than one thing? We talk about, if you're investing, how you should have a diverse portfolio, yet when it comes to how you actually make money yourself as an individual, for whatever reason, it's taught to us, you do this one thing. But what if I release that rule? What if I release that should? I'm like, well, oh yeah, I can still do some DEI work over here. And oh, maybe I can do some SE work as well. Oh, maybe I'll do some doula or childbirthing classes over here as well. And then when people ask me, so what do you do? I can have fun with the answer. Like, depends on the day. You mean like for fun? I really enjoy yoga. Nice. It's just really now in a place where I feel comfortable having fun with that question if someone asks me that. Whereas before, I do think there was a lot of pressure, or there was a lot of identity. The same way we talk about how we can identify with our trauma response, which I don't think for me is isn't a coincidence. My flight response allowed me to be really successful in corporate America. So I began to get an identity both from my role within corporate America and my flight response. Those are heavily connected. So yeah, I think I'm in a place now where, it's just sort of try things. And it was also releasing the outward projection. Because again, growing up, what do I see on sitcoms? Oh, 90s sitcoms. You taught me so much, both good and bad. But it's just like, oh, hippie cousin Cheryl, she's in a new job again. You never know what she's going to be doing. And it was always bad. Like, that's the bad relative who can't get their shit together. And so you didn't want to be that person who was hopping around from job to job, because it just meant that you were completely irresponsible. You couldn't support yourself. And so I just released that image too.
I was cousin Cheryl. Like, I was like, my career path from 18 to 27, 28, I was cousin Cheryl. It was like, that's what I did really well.
This business is being run by two Cheryls. Two Cheryls and a Camille.
Two Cheryls and a Camille. Thank God it's for the Camille.
Because that's been my same experience as Luis. I've just been, what I look back and I realize what I had capacity for when it came to professions was dreaming about stuff. But that was it.
I love that. That's so nice though. Like you wanted to dream up something.
Well, I would just be like, it would be more just being in fantasy about stuff. Like I'm working at a crappy job, but I'm just thinking about whatever, being the lawyer, doctor, the thing that your parents are proud of.
Oh, I see.
And I would just sort of be like, but even if there were things I was interested in doing, and even if I got the chance to do one of that, I usually just had the capacity for working at my shitty job, you know?
I really like the bringing capacity in, of course, like one of my favorite words, because I mean, how many times do we hear someone in the course or in any of my group things I do say, well, what do you say to the person that doesn't have capacity to work? You tell them to quit their job, Luis? I'm like, actually, actually, that's what I did. And I don't think I've ever actually said quit your job. I would never tell anybody that. That's up to them.
Yeah.
But every time I hit capacity, I quit my job. And my experience was you can only do that if you're at peace with all the stories of fear. So, you know, I relinquished having an internet connection at one point. You know, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a 401k. I didn't have savings. I had nothing. I had no overhead. And that gave me the freedom to just say, I'm going to do whatever I want with work as long as it's with my capacity. How did you navigate that, Marika? How did you let yourself do that?
Well, really, I mean, I feel like, well, no, that's not true. I'm thinking of, I was a manicurist forever. This is why people love telling me stuff all the time. And a friend of mine was like, well, you're not rich in money, but you're rich in secrets. I was like, oh, cool. Isn't that like a television show? Probably should be. So yeah, it's mostly that I did manicuring for, I had to find something that was steady when I was pregnant. My son was a wonderful, holy shit, 21-year-old surprise, you know. And I didn't really have, I think I had worked at Subway up until that point, you know. And so there was a program and I could do it in 6 to 8 months, and I did it, and I ended up really liking it. So I did that for on and
I'm like just getting this image of you at Subway, and
I'm a certified Subway artist. Thank you. But
certified.
I know, certified. And you know, when I had to take a test. Thank you very much. And when I did, she made a very big deal of my my hourly going up 25 cents.
You better
That's
do
right.
it.
This is a 1958.
I remember those days.
Right. I mean, it was yeah, where I'm like, oh my God, I'm making like over $10 an hour. It was like,
oh yeah.
In Seattle, where I can't even really afford to live now.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, it was out of necessity, you know, that I had to go make better money. And I did okay, you know, for a while, but I just don't, my capacity for people was, I found that I would leave when I didn't have capacity for people, and I could always find a new job somewhere else. But it was often like in management or people I worked with, or, you know, me.
Yeah.
Like just finding, you know, I've always felt like, and I think that you would agree, it's like, if I get along with the person or you know, or I really like the people I'm working with, I can pretty much do anything.
Definitely.
And I'm happy to get up every day and do whatever it is that we're doing together, because I really like, you know, either I like the message, kind of like how you and I work together, how we work together. You know, I like what we're doing. I think that we're helping people. I feel like I'm growing as a person. But also, if you had some other business there that you were like, hey, you should come work with me, I probably would, just because, you know, it's kind of about the connections for me.
I totally get that. I find, like, when I'm thinking of Camille quitting her job, and I'm thinking of what you said about identity, like identifying with the career, it's, to me, that's my experience was actually, looking back, like quite spiritual. Like all my jobs, I mean, I probably had 30 jobs, you know, and they were all, each one was extremely different from the next. My resume made no sense, you know, but it was, each one was an ego death. It was like, oh, I'm studying as a psychology major. Oh, now I'm working at a corner store for $7 an hour. Oh, now I'm filling mini bars. Now I'm selling comedy club tickets. Now I'm at a wellness center. You know, like just hip hopping everywhere. Hip hopping.
Like comedy.
Happening. And so everyone for me was like an ego death. And every time a family member, someone, especially like wealthy people, like when I lived in New York City, I would meet all these like really wealthy people. They would say things like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I would do what you said, Camille. I would be like, I go to the coffee shop, I write poetry. Like I would never talk about my job because that wasn't anything about me.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that. I love the noticing of what are we doing in our lives because of our stories, not what are we doing in our lives because of our desire or our capacity or our expressions.
Yeah. I've actually had a really interesting experience with that, or witnessing of that, just over the last couple of weeks. So in my diversity, equity, and inclusion business, I actually had 2 opportunities. Folks reached out to me to do an in-person event. And I just don't feel like traveling right now. I'm doing a lot of virtual work, and I like that. It allows me to still be here when my kids leave and get home from school. It allows me flexibility. I just don't want to travel. So I declined both of those engagements. Now, this time last year, first, that's money. Go get your money. It doesn't have anything to do with your capacity.
Yeah.
It doesn't go get your money, because you don't know if you'll ever get this opportunity again. But I actually feel really good and say, like, no. And just the other day, I was looking at my calendar, like, I would have been traveling that week. Oh, I would have been traveling that week. I'd have no capacity for it right now. And it felt really good just to listen to the capacity rather than the shoulds, rather than really to be in that scarcity mindset as opposed to an abundance mindset, right? In this moment, I'm doing really well financially. I have things planned. I don't have the capacity to travel. I'm not going to do it. And it felt good to make a decision from that place as opposed to a place of scarcity.
I love that. I think of when you said listening to capacity, I think of the the somatics of that again, and around urgency. And I find when my body's bracing and when it feels pressure and when there's fear, overwhelm, depression, whatever the things are that we think are negative, that's the result of where the capacity is. So it's just telling me, hey, listen to me. There's a lot of fear in my chest. I need you to slow down and breathe. And when we listen to capacity, for me, it's almost instantaneous. There's an immediate relief that occurs, and you feel the capacity grow. So I just think it's so magical and important for people listening that, capacity is always shifting. And if we're able to listen to it, we're not identifying with it. We're just simply riding the wave of capacity. And it makes life so much more pleasant. I was at my first live event for 3 years, I think, 2 weekends ago in Pittsburgh. And there were 30 people. So it was a smaller event. I guess it was like a good size, but smaller compared to what I'm doing virtually. And it was a really great group of people. They were so far out, so gorgeous. And I had this great opportunity to play with capacity as a facilitator, not just as someone like going to an event, but facilitating an event. And so I really played with it. There were moments where I would just lay on the floor out of nowhere. And there were moments where I would just stretch my arms out and take a really big breath, or I would excuse myself and go in the room and close my eyes for 10 minutes. And a few years ago, there's no way I would have allowed my body to do what it wanted to. And one of the students said, I was really happy to see you modeling your no and your yes. Like, I didn't know what that looked like till I saw you do that. And now I know how to do that. And in the past, I would have thought I was being unprofessional, or I'm supposed to be really healthy and full of life because I'm a holistic nutrition, all these ideas. And I thought, well, life is also having a headache. Like, life is also being tired. Like, that's all part of the spectrum of our expressions. Yeah. So it was just so gooey to be like, oh, even with a headache, even with exhaustion, even with being hungry, it can actually still be a pleasant experience if I'm just listening to it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that share, because that's it's one of the things I will coach folks on in the workplace, particularly if they're people managers. So like, how can we create a more authentic environment? How can we create a more inclusive environment? We'll model the behaviors that you say you want to see out of your team. I don't know what that means. Like, well, if you were up all night with your kid till 4 a.m. and then you only got 45 minutes of sleep, then you had to be back at work at a 7 a.m. meeting. go ahead and say that at the top of your team meeting. Say, hey, team, I'm working on 45 minutes of sleep. I don't know about y'all, but today I'm going to be dragging a bit. And doing that is mind-blowing for a lot of leaders within the corporate space because of the belief that, like you were saying, one, does that make me unprofessional? And then two, why would I be talking about something if the intent is not to solve it? Which is, I think, a part of the reason in a decolonized society like we live in, why we avoid a lot of things. Yes. Going back to the miscarriage thing, why would I talk about my miscarriage if you can't solve it? So then I'm not going to bring it up, and because there's nothing to solve. I think that's, it's as hokey as some people make it sound, like around the idea of holding space. That's really what it is. And a lot of people don't have the capacity to sit with something without solving it.
I just got like a flash of joyful fantasy of doing like decolonizing the workspace events. And how important that could be, to go into businesses and teach them, right? Like how to listen to their bodies, how to have rooms that are more tactile and more natural, and like smells, like everything that changes how the body functions when you're at the workplace.
Absolutely.
I mean, I like that. I don't know if capitalism will allow it, but yes, I want it.
Well, little by little,
I've seen, especially with the tech stuff. I mean, we used to joke here because, every tech space it's everything that's better than at home, right? It's got the catering, it's got the ping pong tables and the bar and the, because they don't want you to leave, because they want you to just be working, constantly. But I also now see, I'm just thinking of like Amazon or whatever, places that you can pray and places that you can breastfeed and places that you can, a quiet space. And that's, I think it's really important that we're going in that way. When you were talking about the capacity part, for me, that I'm really excited about is when I look at my life now, I have very little have tos. And I feel like before I started doing this work, my entire life was just have tos and ones I didn't want to do. And the thing that I've been trying to employ more, which I did a couple times last week, is when I'm canceling, being like, hey, I hit my capacity, but here's what I have capacity for. I want to do this instead. Like, I can't go do a 5-mile walk or whatever, but I could sit and have coffee in the backyard or whatever it is. I'm trying to resource better in that way, and then I get to do things I want to do more.
I have to highlight this because I was just talking to somebody yesterday about this. I was saying that my flight response used to have me just like indiscriminately cancel things. So if I knew something was coming up and I felt just like I didn't like, okay, friends coming over, I don't have capacity to talk, I would just think cancel, flight, stop. And then in the last year, especially, I've felt this nuance of, oh, I don't have capacity for talking, but I have capacity for building a fire with them, right? Or I have capacity for like holding hands and going for a walk in the woods, or listening to music together, just an hour instead of 3 hours. And that's so beautiful, because when you can name what you don't have capacity for and then name what you do, you're offering that person to relate to you as you are, not as you want them to think you are, or hiding a part of yourself, right? You still get a need met based on your capacity. How do your friends respond to that clarity?
I think pretty good. Actually, this last weekend, I did go for a nice 3-mile walk with a friend of mine around Green Lake, and I have not exercised in a minute. And so instead of beating myself up, like probably I think 4 times, I just asked if we could stop and like hang on a bench, and I stretched and we just talked a little bit, and then I would feel more resourced, and then we would go. And then when I got home, I was like, my body's dying. Why did I do that? So I texted my friend I was supposed to meet with later. And I said, hey, my body's not into it, but like, what if we went to dinner instead? And she was like, I've been in bed all day. This is great. Let's like cancel. So it was like perfect, like
I love that.
It allows other people to change their minds too,
That, I was just gonna say that's my favorite part of this, is you see the relief in people saying, oh, I'm allowed to do that. Like, you become a safe person for them to be real with. And it's like, why are we performing it for friends? Like, I want the capacity to be disappointed by my friends and also love that they're doing what they need at the same time.
Yeah, I'm surprised by how many, not that surprised, but I am surprised when I look back at how many times I was going to hang out with somebody and it would be like, okay, let's go,
Yes,
kind of
yes.
store up my energy and all that stuff. And it's like, no, I want people to, I also want people to hang out with, a great version of me.
I was just
Like
thinking that, like,
a
you're not giving
rested,
them
happy, grounded, like resourced me,
right. You're not bringing anything to them when you bring them an exhausted, resentful, fawning Marika.
Thank you.
That's not the person I want to hang out with.
Exactly. So I've been really enjoying bringing capacity to the masses.
Yeah. I saw your eyes light up, Camille. What were you thinking over there?
Yeah, it was. I'm thinking of again, my examples never seem as cool, but
It's your story, girl. It's your story.
So pre-COVID, I would, a couple of times a year have large family friend events at my house, do all the cooking, have folks come over. And the part of it was like, I cook, I do everything. And I enjoyed the accolades that came in there. Oh my goodness, you cooked all of this. One year, it was like right after Jamal had been born. I did Thanksgiving. He was like 2 months old. And like, how are you doing all this? And you got a 2-month-old baby. I'm just like, I just do
dopamine,
what I do.
Dopamine.
Virgo.
Yeah. All these dopamine hits. And then I could never do this. Oh, yes, you could, And now I'm at a place where I'm just like, oh my God, I won't do that shit ever again.
No.
Like there is a part of me, like as I was processing, I'm like, I'm going to cater. If I do anything, either one, I don't even think I want to do it in my house because that means I got to clean my house.
Oh yeah.
We can go to a restaurant, or two, I'll cater. And I know there's a part of me, but like, there's going to be particularly like older aunts or relatives that judge me. All right, that's their story. I'm like so much more comfortable with the idea of doing events outside of my house or getting it catered. Like, I don't need the accolades that come for like, oh my gosh, how did you do all of this? Mm-hmm. I didn't. That's KFC or, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I haven't had a chance to test it out yet, but like in my body, like that's how I feel. Like, I don't feel the need to cook everything. From cutting up the celery by hand to the cheesecake, like everything in between, and having all these different options. Like, I enjoy cooking, but it wasn't in those moments. I wasn't like actually enjoying the cooking. I was doing it. It was part of the flight response. It was part of the accolades. It was part of the story. Like, okay, I should be able to do all this. And that's a should I've released, and I look forward to actually trying that out one day.
That's cool.
Well, it never fails to amaze me how the more embodied we become, the more we realize how hard we've pushed our bodies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really how hard we've pushed these bodies for so long.
Yes.
Because we weren't in them. We were so high from the praise, or we were so high from the thing of doing what we thought we were supposed to do, that we weren't even feeling our bodies saying, like, I don't like this very much. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, we were just hypnotized by these ideas.
What you said, Camille, reminded me of my mom. She could correct me, but every year when you have multiple kids and they have multiple parents, like who's going to wear for Christmas, who's going to wear for Thanksgiving, if you celebrate those, and it's always a slog, and it's never that fun, There wasn't, like, just trying to get places and 2 hours to here and 2 hours to there. And then one year, I don't know what, it wasn't that long ago, my mom was like, we're just going to do it on a different day. Like, it isn't that hard. Do you know what I mean? But it freed up everybody's holidays. And then it's like, you're so excited to see each other because you already got the Christmas thing behind you or whatever it is. And now we just get to like hang out as a family. And it was just like, how many years she had to go through that with her in-laws and stuff. And then we started doing it 10 years in, and it was like, we don't want to do, this is, and if we're all around the weekend after Christmas, why aren't we just getting together then? Like, okay. And it just made everything simple. And it's been so wonderful ever since,
So I'm really feeling this kind of closing invitation off for everybody based on this.
Yeah.
It's like letting us, those of you listening, for us three, for myself, just kind of noticing what have I inherited? What have I observed? And what do I keep reliving or nurturing or feeding in myself that really pushes me to go past what feels good? and just kind of feeling into that, because this conversation has brought up so many beautiful examples of what it feels like to follow your joy, what it feels like to follow your truth. Like when people talk about authentic self, we tend to think it means like success and I'm happy and I'm honest. And like authentic self is wherever you are in the moment. So if I'm fawning my way through a 20 plate dinner and I'm making it all, it's like that's actually my authenticity at the moment based on my capacity and what I think is right for me. So if everyone just kind of notices like what's natural for me right now based on my story, and then without the story, what's natural, what emerges. I think it's just so fertile. Um, this whole year for me has been so life-changing on so many levels, and it started with my friend at a men's group, a Sacred Fire, in I think it was November 2021. He asked the question. No, they were all talking about how they wanted something, but they didn't want to hurt their partner. And I asked the question, what would we do in our lives if we weren't worried about hurting our partner or hurting somebody? Like what would your need be? What would your expression be? And I've been trying to live that out since then. Like, what do I want to do here? And what don't I do because I think I'm gonna hurt you? So whether it's like running to the front of the stage and yelling to Patti Smith and I'm gonna like block somebody and like ruin their time, or how I choose to relate to my wife, or how I choose to relate to you two or friends. Like, what would I do if I wasn't worried about hurting the person? And it's just something I've been sitting with. I know we have to close soon, but I just get curious of where that goes for you two. Where's that, or where is that currently alive for you?
It actually reminds me of a similar practice that I've really been trying to be more cognizant of over the last 18 months or so. Generally try not to live in binaries, but in this case, it helps me. When I'm making decisions or really trying to, determine my path, it's helpful for me to determine, am I being motivated by fear or love? Like those two, it really helps me to think of it in those two dichotomies. And if I'm being motivated by fear, what would it mean for me to be motivated by love in this moment? And what would that decision look like? So again, going back to me choosing to quit my job, part of it was because I realized what's keeping me in my job is fear of not having enough money, fear of not being able to pay my bills, and really fear of people finding out I couldn't pay my bills. What would it mean for me to make a decision from love? Mm-hmm. And so that practice, that dichotomy, that's what it reminds me of.
I love that so much. What about you, Marika?
Well, I love I love making decisions based on what I want, what's good for me and what's good for my body. And hopefully it's not bad for other people's bodies, but I don't think that I actually usually have to make those kinds of decisions. But one thing I know is I don't like it when other people are assuming they know how I will react to anything, what I'm thinking about anything. I feel really misrepresented in those moments. And so I don't want to do that to anyone else either, right? So if I'm making a decision that's solely based on what I need and what I want, or even what I like, without, it sounds weird to say without thinking of my partner, but just without, I guess for me, it's without fawning.
No, you're right.
Then I'm going to get an authentic, hopefully authentic response from the people that I previously would have thought I was hurting. Right. Like, so yeah, I try not to do that to other people and just like, well, I'm going to make this decision because I think they won't be able to handle it. I don't think they think this way. I don't think they, they want to do that. Like,
what I love,
it's easier for me to just ask,
See, that's what I love. What you both shared some real wisdom there for us, because if we think of the fear or love, if you're doing it from love and it bothers people still, you're going to be so centered in yourself because it's from love. And so that's something we can orient to if people get offended or even hurt by what we do. If it's from love, we can be with that intention. And I love this piece of, I can ask them, you know, because I've done things or not done things I thought I knew how someone would respond. And when I told them that's why I did that, they felt like, oh, you don't respect me enough to just give me your truth. Like, you think I can't handle it.
Right.
And they're right. Like, I didn't think you could handle it. I judged you. So that's a really wise piece to bring in.
I just do a lot of thinking for other people, and then I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I did not need to do that. I was having a hard enough time thinking for myself.
Yes. It's hard enough to think for ourselves. Like, add the other person. It's just totally disorienting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you both. I'm just still floored that Camille's pregnant.
I know! With a baby, Camille.
With a whole baby.
A whole ass baby.
Not an idea, a baby.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, I feel like if you need name ideas, it's Luis and Marika. One of those.
Are you gonna? Is this something we can tell the members tomorrow in membership, or do you want?
Yeah, I was gonna say if we do good news, I'd love to share that.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna do that. Maybe what we'll do is
I'm just floored.
Maybe we'll open up with good news, and then everyone can share their good news, and you can.
I would love that. I would love that. I love
too.
The good news.
It lights me up when we do the good news.
Oh yeah, the members love it. I'm so
Yeah.
glad we're doing that more.
Those of you listening in the membership, we noticed after many months of not doing this, that when you're coming together for trauma healing, you tend to orient toward your traumas. So you tend to orient toward the events, the expressions from the events, like, how do I heal this? How do I uncouple? And we don't spend enough time in the counter vortex of our joy. Like, yeah, I have PTSD. And what was the moment today when I didn't? When was the moment that I felt free? When was there a moment when I laughed? When was the moment where I loved? You know, that's so important to orient to. So I don't know about you two, but when we do those shares and we have people orient toward their joy, do you see the shifts in their faces and their bodies?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
Amazing.
And people want to share more, honestly. It just gets them in the mood to share. And I think and then you get to meet people in a different place.
Yes, and there's more capacity I've noticed for the witnessers to even witness, because it's not heavy after heavy. It's like light after light. It feels really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Okay, I'm excited.
Me too. Oh, can't wait. So so by the time y'all hear this, a lot more people are already gonna know. But send Camille your congrats if you want to.
Appreciate it.
You can find her info on my website, and you can reach out to her there. So thank you all so much. Okay, I'll see you soon. That's the end of today's episode. Now let's take a moment to notice where we feel the episode in our bodies. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And let whatever wants to come up, come up. And remember, those sensations hold the wisdom that we're looking for. If you want to go deeper, visit holisticlifenavigation.com.